Okay. Good evening, everybody. No reaction. Yeah, guys, great to have you here. And before we will kick out, has anybody have heard these two magic words, HashiCorp Vault? Okay. And what do you think about it? Oh, okay. Have you tried programming for it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. So we're going to have a little bit of boxing competition with Iliad. So Iliad, I want to hear your opinion in the end. Okay. So anyway, before we dive into this, let's say I'm an evil solution architect that will come to a project and say, you shall use Vault. Why would I do this? Any idea?
Because we're evil?
Yeah, of course, we're evil. Any idea why you should use one of these?
You have stocks at HashiCorp?
Okay, nice try. Well, I wish I would, but I don't.
Rotational secret?
Oh, why would you do that?
Security?
Oh, security. Right, any more bright ideas?
Version control?
Okay, keep going.
Throw away all your credentials.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy for auditing, for compliance,
Certificates?
Yeah,
zero trust environments,
yeah.
certificates, PKIs.
Well, you see, we have a specialist here talking at the back. But the thing is, all this is abstract. But in these days, what you need to remember is that you have to do this because of bloody money. Maybe you have heard about a few incidents where people were committing their keys and secrets into public AWS repositories. And that was 2015, right? Do you think anything changed? No, it's all broken beyond belief, yeah? And believe it or not, if you leak your private thingy into AWS within probably 4 hours, it will be found and somebody will try to spin up something to mine probably bitcoins. You do this for money, guys, you do this for money. Sorry, before I continue, for those who don't know me, my name is Alex. As I mentioned, I'm a solution bloody architect and I have 20 plus years of doing all sorts of IT. So kind of if there's a programming language, probably I used to do a project before. And my current full stack comprises PowerPoint, Outlook and Slack. Yeah. So kind of a message for those who want to be solution architect. Good, if you're a good developer, don't. Because you will have to deal with people. So what I want to tell you about is my personal experience of building things for HashiCorp Vault, and kind of I want to inspire you to actually to go and try it, so that next time we'll have more hands in the air. Right, let's take a look at this. Guys, what does this piece of code do? Anybody? It's a trick question.
With a handler.
Yeah? Yeah.
It returns hard-coded posts.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, how complex is this?
Very. Enterprise.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, this is plus minus what you need to do to program your own HashiCorp Vault extension, and we're gonna take a deep dive into this. So, in preparation for this talk, I have created a repository where I have put actually a real example. So, kind of this is the QR code that you want to take a snap and take a look at it. And I will share the slides, of course, and the link will be in there as well. So, yeah, let's do a sec. All right. Okay. So let's go into this. Well. HashiCorp Vault is HTTP server, actually, programmed on steroids a bit, where the only difference is that you get some kind of super duper encrypted secure storage, which guys from HashiCorp Vault has provided for you. So if you want to do that, well, if you can do REST service, yeah, then you can do this quite easily. Well, actually, the truth is, I can end the talk right here, but I would lie, because it's actually quite hard, and I want to tell you a few more things about it. When we begin with security, and when we look at the HashiCorp Vault, they have one very specific thing that they promote very heavily. It's use of leases versus data. Okay, I'm not going to ask you what is it. So what is Data. Well, data is just your secret, right? So it kind of you want to get it from your postman, you're gonna get it out of Vault, and kind of you're gonna do something with it. Nothing special, right? All secret management tools do that. What Vault does, they do one thing which is actually quite clever. What they have a means to actually dynamically create it. So they can create logins, they can create access tokens, they can create anything. If it's got an API, you can do it. So what you'll get a secret which is made for you. And the good thing is, it is not forever. So you have to renew it, you have to tell to the Vault that, okay, I'm still here, I need it. Because what's going to happen in the end, Vault will sort of also magically revoke it. So you get complete clean thing. So no more leaked accounts, no more forgotten things. If nobody uses, it gets killed. So this is what Elise is for you. Right, which kind of teaches the people that you need to rotate secrets. And it's actually quite annoying. And I'm going to tell you why. So whenever you will say, okay, I have a task for the enterprise, probably I have to talk to a some kind of API, probably I have to talk to the bad API. And I need to protect really two types of credentials. One time, like authorization codes, easy, and revocable, like access tokens. But the truth is, in the field, there is a thing in between, effectively irrevocable. What does this mean? Let's assume you have a very bad vendor, and it gives you the token which is valid for 3 months. It is effectively irrevocable. You cannot do anything with it. So how do you manage that? There are tips and tricks. If you're interested, come and talk to me, because that's kind of what a dedicated topic. Now, what you need to understand for your design of your super evil HTTP server based on HashiCorp Vault, you have sort of a decision tree. What kind of data, what kind of secrets are you given? Are you given one time or revocable? And there is actually a second consideration. Does it actually need caching? What kind of caching? It turns out Vault comes with a super solution which is called Vault Agent. And Vault Agent is nothing more than yet another copy of the Vault, which sort of, starts proxying the requests. Now, question here. Guys, who ever worked in infrastructure management? Okay. Did you try managing OAuth service, or service which save OAuth credentials? Okay, a few. What is the number one mistake that junior developers do when it comes to OAuth tokens?
Hardcode them.
Sorry?
Hardcode them in application.
Hardcode in application.
And commit them. And push them.
Yeah, okay, but that's not as bad because they're typically short-lived.
Don't validate it.
Sorry?
Don't validate hardcode.
Okay, don't validate it. Anybody else?
Usually every time.
Yeah, that also happens. Yeah, we come into to GitHub and push, of course. Sorry?
Don't expire.
Sorry, say again?
No expire.
Not expired. You're getting closer. Well, the thing is, people just don't understand the validity of access tokens. So what you actually find is people start mindlessly asking for tokens for every single bloody call. So it is not unusual to see 300, 400 tokens per minute requested by the application, where only one would be sufficient. Right, so this is a solution to this problem, because typically, let's say, if you would give a postman to your junior developer, that's what they will start doing. But Agent solves it because they sort of out of the box provide this caching quite nicely. So you can kind of have it done in a very nice way, just out of the box. Another interesting topic, what you will hear frequently from HashiCorp documentation, is the role. And it's kind of confusing. What does it mean, role? What do they talk about? It's actually quite easy. It's the way how they see structuring the access paths, or rather URI paths, for their access. You have the entry points, then you have something that stores your credentials. They call it role. And then on that you do operations. Works fantastic. Next interesting thing, and now we start slowly coming to the point where it will get frustrating. Storage. The very first function that you will be faced with is to validate if your role actually exists. Okay, how hard can it be? Actually, I spent 2 days trying to understand how to do it, because I personally found that, well, kind of it's a bit not intuitive, you know. Kind of, I come mainly from Java environment, and we're used to injections with factories, but it's just not here. But it should be somewhere, right? And the solution is incredibly simple. It just stares in your face. It's actually storage. What actually kind of what Vault protects. It's just injected as part of the request. Just right there. Yeah. How easy? Yeah. Next problem, which took me about 5 days on the calendar to figure out, is, well, how can I actually store JSON in it? Because it turns out it's another interesting thing, which is not really clearly documented in the documentation, is that, let's say you want to push the data structure, you just have to call this method. And that's it. You wrap it up, and then, oops, sorry, I'm going too fast. You wrap it up, and you have it. You can also store binaries. Like, you know, you can store private keys. You can just dump it there. It's quite easy. It just literally, it's that simple. But kind of finding that is quite hard. The same thing as reading stuff back, reading binaries. Straightforward. And yeah, this is where kind of we start getting into kind of error handling, where it slowly becomes more complex. This is where what you couldn't read. This is what you couldn't find it. And well, here is kind of we have something for you. And the same thing with let's say reading JSON. Yeah, it's just more or less the same thing, just a wrapper on top of JSON and Marshall, and kind of the same thing. Boom. Okay, that's it. So, guys, how are we doing so far? Is it very complex? Okay, well, the thing is, it will become complex once you start putting something real, because after a lot of trial and error, I actually have figured out that I'm doing a lot of repetitions. Like, okay, so I have a request, I have to validate it. So I have to check if a role exists. Then maybe I need to check the conditions that exist on the role, and well, a few other things. And the code has become messy. It has become this if then else. And it was driving me nuts. So what I have come up with, especially when Go 1.18 have come out, I have come up with this piece of code. Like, try to use a bit of generics and try to use a bit of a functional programming, and boom, you can have a very clean, neat piece of code which describes more or less what your operation does, right? So even without knowing what the intention of this thing is, you can already get the idea what's going on, right? It's kind of fits on the screen. But then, what's that? Does anybody know? Yeah, it is generic. Why do we need generics?
So you don't have to copy paste everything all the time?
Well, that's half of the answer.
You can use different types of injection.
Exactly. I can use different types, and I don't have to manually cast the interface into the type. I hated it. And here I feel that the compiler is working actually for me, because he's able to validate that kind of I'm trying to put together chain of functions that probably don't take the same objects. And kind of, you know, once I have figured out, it started kind of looking very nicely, and you can see the results on the GitHub repo that I have shared with you. But why are they missing here? I'm going to cover this in a second. So the thing is, if you look at sort of highly pluggable architecture that you will end up with, you have sort of a series of steps that you want to do in your plugin, and you just chain them one after another. And it turns out you have 3 outputs that you have there. Response, an error, and continue, right? So what you can do, you can come up with this elegant piece of code, which is completely generified, which actually drives this. It still fits on the screen. So what do we have here? We have a function, which take in, take out, functional programming, and we have a driver, which simply kind of iterates until either we have a response, so we don't need to go further, or something bad happened. Boom, how easy it becomes. It becomes very nice. And here comes the need for generics. So for example, I have a function that sort of can be used in any context that has to do something with my role. Like say I want to block a usage that exceeds the limit. Okay, I end up writing very simple code. It's testable. It's easy to test, which I like. However, what I can also do, I can say that I have functions that are intended for very specific objects. And also using this, I can control where and how I intend to plug my code. And fantastic, I leverage generic, so now compile is working for me. Yes, great. Michal, how are we doing on time?
Good.
Good, fantastic. Right, that took me probably about a year to figure this out. I wasn't kind of working on this continuously, and I was actually very proud of myself. So I was prepared to roll it out to my team, and I said, guys, you know what? We were afraid all the time that we're gonna leak these secrets. That you know, we were thinking, oh man, I have a solution. Let's try to use Vault. What do you think was their first reaction?
No.
Yeah, those who guessed it right. Do you know why?
Experience that they don't know it.
It's more work.
Yeah, exactly. Any more ideas?
It adds complexity.
Absolutely, it adds complexity, right. So yeah, that's the compliment that I heard, that the Go code is utterly beautiful, but it has become complex. How many people have their logins and secrets stored stored in a Confluence page?
There's not afraid to raise their hands.
Okay, right. So how many people have received logins and passwords just from a colleagues, like on a Slack? Yeah, okay, right. How many times have you shared it with people? Yeah. Look, secret sprawl is, from a security perspective, is a big thing, and the thing is, it's easy to sprawl, and it's quite hard to convince people that you need to start doing things in a different way. This is the missing part of the HashiCorp documentation. They don't tell you this. So they want you to hook it up and sell it, and you will have to convince the people, right? So, fearing new security tooling. I think this is probably one of the top reasons for avoiding doing sensible things. Be prepared if you want to do it, but by all means, you really have to overcome it. How you can convince this? Very simple. Prevention is cheaper. Look, think about this. If we learn to do a little bit of vaulting, well, we can save actually some money on AWS usage because we are sure that we will not be leaking keys. How cool can it be? Well, not everybody agrees. Let me tell you my own path, how actually I came to this idea. So actually why I started looking at this in the first place. And I've hinted about this already. Yeah, it's important. My time, I was working in the infrastructure for, let's say, a company that does something with the blue planes in and out of Schiphol. And what I was doing was critical for the continuity. Let's say, literally, this plane wouldn't depart out of Schiphol if I screw things up. And actually, I was concerned that everybody I talked to was having this impression. Well, we are in the cloud, so it must be secure, right? Security is in the cloud. How many people have heard this expression? If we do in the cloud, then it must be secure. One? Only one? So far, okay. How many people are convinced that you are secure in the cloud? Okay, right. So it's fine that you don't admit. That's okay. That's okay. Right. And then this guy has come along, Postman. This is perhaps the weirdest beast. So this you can't really remove it from the hands of developers without them starting a revolution. Have you seen the screen before? Okay. Now the question, if you were a chief information security officer, what would you look at here? Because this one has a thing that CISO would shoot you for.
Environments and variables.
Environments, passwords, sign in. I've even seen a CISO that has passwords in it.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, but actually, in my experience, that would be about this. That's okay if you can work locally, but whenever you log in, you actually start synchronizing data with the cloud. And whenever this clicks with the site, you say, guys, we are actually copying as good as all our logins and passwords to Postman Cloud, which, by the way, is not affiliated in any shape and form. There is no agreement. It's something we just blindly copying this stuff out. So what do you think large corporations do to solve this problem?
Private cloud?
Sorry?
Private cloud?
You are very nice. If you work for this company, please do. Any idea? Sorry? Mm? Sorry?
They block Postman for developers.
Yeah, exactly. Because they are afraid of this. How many has this happened before? How many times have you received the Postman collection, including environments from a random guy? Yeah, too many times. How many times have you sent it? It's fine, yeah. It's fine that you don't admit. Well, this is shockingly common. This is shockingly common, and I have seen several reputable banking organizations that literally banned use of Postman. Literally, yeah, you're not allowed to use it. That's it. It's not secure. So actually, or if they would allow, they say you must never click the login button. And I was looking at this, well, how can you check it? This is like, not really sustainable. So that was my motivation. I thought, well, guys, look, we have this issue. Developers love Postman. I'm not going to comment it, but they're going to love it. We're going to find the ways to do it. So that's me. I need to find a way to solve the problem. And when I came across agents and a HashiCorp Vault, I have figured out, well, wow, that's what we can just do, right? We have pre-request script. We can call the agent. We can get all our secrets, and we save them as our variables. Fantastic. We're safe because they're not stored anywhere. I can give it to everybody. It suddenly becomes public. But then what is very difficult in my experience, when you start explaining this, but look, I have spent all this effort, I've put this secure, it cannot leak anymore. Developers don't like it. Why? They don't like putting this piece of a JavaScript in. Copy-paste environmental variables is much easier. So that's why they don't do it. Ridiculous, right? So, and the worst, when you start pitching this to somebody, like to a product owner, they will say, "Oh, we're not gonna build it." I said, "Why? Why are you not gonna do it?" This is probably what you're gonna hear. We don't do security because we can't. And this comes me to the conclusion of my talk. Of course, doing security is hard. You really need to spend your time on it. You really need to think it through. But it's not that complicated once you have figured out. And as you have seen from my presentation, it takes a few lines of code, if you know what to write. And if you know me, by the way. Yeah, so, what do you say to your PO? If you ask, well, do you really need a secret engine? This is what you tell. We do if we don't know why. Because these days, securing the keys, keeping your, let's say, infrastructure secure, is mandatory. We're all creatures of habit. Yeah? So, on this note, that's what I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm going to take a lot of questions. Guys. Yes?
How do you secure the token for the pre-script?
Sorry?
How do you secure the token for
Yeah.
the pre-request script?
Yeah, a token for the pre-request script is secured by the agent itself, and typically that would be secured with certificates that would be installed on your device.
All right.
So that means that it becomes passwordless. You don't have to type anything. Any more questions? Yes.
What about trusting HashiCorp Vault itself? Do you feel it's secure to store data with them?
The trick is that you do not need to store all the data in HashiCorp Vault. This is not actually a cloud solution, although they do have an offering for it.
But they transfer the data?
No, they don't. HashiCorp Vault is actually a binary that you can write on your laptop, and it would write into the file on your file system. That's literally what it is. Of course, you can make it kind of accessible somewhere on the internet. So you can put it on your VPN. You can put it over whatever you want, essentially. And they have a host of authentication and authorization options, right? But then in the end, you can just, store everything locally. And this is the company which offers full open source. So if you don't trust them, you can check out the code, go over it, and compile it to do it themselves. It is all open source.
Did you end up using this?
Sorry?
Did you end up using this?
Yes, I use it all the time.
Everybody else?
That's a challenge. Yeah. Yes, I use it all ever since I have created this plugin. Essentially, I have deleted all traces of keys that were required from my work, from my laptop, so that I'm sure that I cannot leak them. What about others? That's their fun. Yes?
How does the Vault itself secure the data that is within it? Is it encrypted or?
It is encrypted. Vault has encrypted storage, which is encrypted with master password. And by default, you get 5 shards of this master key that you can distribute to 5 people. And whenever you initialize the storage, you can define the consensus of how many people are needed to encrypt it. So let's say in a typical scenario, they recommend that any 3 out of 5 holders would need to provide their part of the master key for the vault to start. That's how that would be done in, let's say, in the super enterprise environment. Of course, for your local storage, that's probably a little bit over the top. There are different options. And my personal thinking is the default would be to, let's say, to use either AWS KMS or Azure Key Store to do this. But then it's like you need to authenticate to it. So it is encrypted. And the downside is it's one-way encryption. If you lose the key, that's it. You lose all your secrets.
So during the process of reading and writing,
Yeah.
encryption and decryption.
Encryption and decryption happens, yes.
So there's a latency.
Correct. Correct. A vault is not something that you would use, for example, as a super performant, let's say, proxy to run your production application. It's a way to taxing. What you can do, you can secure people to, let's say, to make sure that they cannot accidentally copy-paste, let's say, secrets. That I can do, and it works actually quite well. And when we talk about latency, so we talk about like milliseconds. So for the administrator, if you don't notice anything, it's actually very fast. Yes.
How do you store master key? In a piece of paper or something?
Very good question. I personally wrap I don't store the key. I store the unseal script, which is a script which delivers command, which is wrapped with a symmetric key. So open SSL, decrypt it, the key is in your head, that's it. Any more questions? Because I have 3 more answers.
The role you mentioned, is it something similar to AWS role or different?
Yeah, it's very different from AWS role. Let's say it has to do with the idea that you may want to store different secrets for different environments. Let's say you have test, you have integration test, you have user acceptance, you have production. So that's what HashiCorp refers to, that you don't need to spin up a plugin for every occurrence. You just put one plugin into your, let's say, Vault, and then you kind of separate these credentials by, let's say, by this kind of, by name, what they refer to as role. And that's why I had the same confusion. Are you talking about AWS role? No, it's just this, credentials. Yes.
Those individual engineers need authorization for the script to talk to the vaults to get the variables in the postman?
Right, excellent question. Bifana is dependent on your deployment topology because Vault is extremely flexible tool. You can implement quite sophisticated authorization. And the benefit of Vault agent is that it makes it passwordless. So either you use PKI or you use what they call this app role, authentication and authorization, and you talk to the server, and there you have also authorization. So you can control who can see what, although for them, for the developer, they don't need to enter anything. They just start and they read from, let's say, from the device. Which is the whole point. Make it simple. Don't make them enter anything into the environment. Yeah, have I answered your question?
You said that
Yeah.
you use certificates on the local machine.
Correct.
To authenticate.
Correct.
But do you use also short-lived sessions, or how does it work in terms of user
Yeah.
session?
Can you tell me what exactly user session are you referring to?
Because you talked about short-lived sessions.
Correct.
Short-lived keys, right?
Yeah.
For the user.
Yeah.
Are you using those, or are you just using the machine certificates to authenticate the user?
Right. So these certificates are used to authenticate you to the Vault, right? And they are stored on your device. And whenever you build a connection chain, then we can control which roles you can have access to. So this is one kind of one way of authentication. There is completely different story when you get, let's say, login and password for the database. Vault is extremely flexible, and it offers probably 1,000 ways of controlling the duration of how you get it and how you maintain it. So they don't really have the user session. They have the idea of lease, and it can be indefinite as long as you renew it. And so it's kind of completely disconnected from each other. So what you authenticate to and what you get, those are very different things. Have I answered your question? Because if I not, please talk to me. It's a deep subject.
No, I understood.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I'm not sure if I missed it or you didn't mention. Do you incorporate this into some pipelines for upper environment, or do you use it just for local secrets?
In my personal experience, I use it for secrets, let's say, that are keys to the kingdom. So like I can rip open complete infrastructure and do everything. Let's say if I do 24/7 support, sometimes it's necessary. However, we do use these kind of simpler integrations as part of pipeline that, for example, does preparation for disaster recovery. Let's say we do store within the Vault kind of the key and secret of our client applications that we deem critical. So let's say in the event, God forbid, something happens with our SaaS provider and they wipe out their database, then we can restore them without reprovisioning the keys. And this is kind of incorporated as part of the pipeline. So you can do it. It's pipeline friendly. Yeah, but then you need to use different authentication techniques But if you have a questions, I will be happy to answer it. Okay? Yeah.
This one for me, I promise.
Yeah.
So let's say in a scenario where you have to share a special revocable key with a client, that you, like a third-party client, that use your service.
Yeah.
Are these keys named, or is there a place where you can manage it? Let's say they misplace the key, or they think it has leaked. Is there a way for you as the owner of the vault to kind of revoke that key in time?
Exactly. The thing is, it's a very, very good question. How can we make sure that the keys are actually revoked? It's a feature which is actually built into this, into my plugin, and it does come with the encrypted exchange and with usage quoting. So it doesn't exist, let's say, within out-of-the-box Vault. You need to build it custom, and it's actually not that hard to do. Okay, it looks like you have more questions. You know, you stand between kind of this group and pizzas, and I wouldn't be in your position. Yeah. All right, guys, that was the last question. But before we start, thank you for your time. And since we are developers, I'm going to give you the algorithm. How do I expect to get the feedback? So if it's good, share and make it on LinkedIn. If you didn't like it, talk to me on Slack. On this note, pizza!